Join us on this week's WRRAP podcast, where we'll talk all about last week's European fixtures, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll talk about this week's European fixtures, and we'll take a look at Gatland's Six Nations squad, pick the bones out of it, see where we are, and make our predictions for where Wales are going to finish. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the WRRAP podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me as always, full crew, Nick, Harley and Jamie. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How are you doing? Good evening.
Just start with all the easy stuff. Get the easy stuff done out the way and what have you. So, let's say there's loads of stuff to talk about this week, guys. So let's get stuck in with News Desk straight away. Let's get cracking with that one. Jamie, what have you got for us, mate?
Yeah, some sad news to begin with, I'm afraid. So Leon Brown has announced his retirement from pro rugby with immediate effect after suffering persistent neck issues. So the tight head prop made his Dragons debut against Leicester Tigers back in November 2016. He went on to make a total of 74 appearances, scoring 5 tries. In terms of Wales, he won 24 caps. His most recent appearance was against Scotland in last year's Six Nations. And Brown's last appearance for the Dragons was against Benetton back in October. But now, unfortunately, he has made the decision to hang up his boots through injury. Really sad news. I felt this news was coming, though, unfortunately. Leon has had 3 surgeries on his neck in the last 3 years, and that's just not sustainable. He's got to think of his long-term health. I always felt that this season was make or break for Leon, but unfortunately, as he said in his statement, his body is fine, but his neck just isn't playing ball. So he's had to make the decision to retire, and it's really sad because I think if he'd stayed fit, he could have been Wales's top tight head for many years. But unfortunately, it hasn't happened, and well, it's just another player in Welsh rugby whose promising career has been wrecked by injuries, isn't it? So yeah, pretty sad news.
Same as Ken Owens, wasn't it? Ken Owens had a neck injury, tried to come back, and then played a season, and then just went, now the neck's not having it. Which,
yeah,
that's the pressure in the front row.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Very similar to what happened with Warbs and Navidi, and the neck issues.
Yep, so that's that. Bit of shock transfer news. So, according to reports, Scarlets and Wales fly-off Ioan Lloyd has signed for Cardiff. Now, this hasn't been confirmed by the clubs yet, just to point out. And when Dwayne Peel was asked about it last week, he was pretty coy about it. But both Wales Online and the BBC, who I do trust, the BBC are reporting that the deal is done and that Ioan Lloyd is going to join Cardiff next season. I don't think many of us saw that coming, did we? Bit of a shocker. Lee, do you want to give us your thoughts on that?
I mean, informally, I've had it confirmed. Unofficially, I've had it confirmed. It doesn't make sense to me in terms of, he's annoyed he's playing second fiddle at the Scarlets, so he wants to go play second fiddle at Cardiff. It just doesn't, and that's why I was when we were talking on the group chat. It was, if you're going to go anywhere where you want to play senior team rugby, you want to be the number one. The obvious place to go at the minute is the Dragons. Dragons struggle for a 10. I know you don't want that type of player, yeah. But my point was, if you want to go somewhere and prove yourself and walk into the first team and go, right, okay, well, I'm going to have 15 games a season and show myself, that's the place to go. To go to Cardiff, where you're going to be fighting with Sheedy, where you've spent half your career waiting for Sheedy to get injured anyway, doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense to me. But it is what it is. You wish the guy all the best. And yeah, you see what comes next. I think what it does do is it releases Tinus de Beer, and that will be interesting to see where Tinus de Beer goes next year.
I think for the bigger picture, though, you've potentially, if not next season, season after, and whatever, you've got 3 Welsh qualified youngish 10s, one at Cardiff, Sam Costello with you, and Dan Edges with us. So I can sort of see for the bigger picture, that's not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, and there's plenty of young players still coming through. It's a string. He came to us to challenge Costello, and he's had 6 starts. Costello's had 5 starts up until the West. So last Friday night, that would have balanced them so far this season. So they've both been on 6 starts at 10. You've been given your chance. But you wish him all the best. He's a hell of a player. I can't remember more than one or two old times where he got stopped by the first tackler. He's a really, once he's running that pace, he's really hard to stop, and he'll beat tackle after tackler. So yeah, is what it is. Wish him all the best. But Harley, what do you reckon about him joining you?
I think part of it is homegoing. He's, Cardiff boy coming through. And as is Sheedy. I'm guessing what he's watched from Sheedy, he thinks he's got a better chance of taking that 10 jersey off. Well, he thinks that will suit Cardiff's game plan. I mean, this is still a speculation here. I think Jockey is saying. I think a lot of his game, the flaws in his game, actually probably Cardiff cover quite well with Ben Thomas at 10 as he almost plays 10 but in the 12 channel when they switch around. So maybe they're hoping having that little bit more of a running threat helps at Cardiff. I mean the thing that bothered me and the thing we were talking about in the central chat was this would be our third 10 in 3 years. And we're just constantly rotating around. Oh, this is going to work. And we kind of think we'd rather that money be spent in the front five. Which, I mean, when we get into the reviews, once again, we've been shown it's just powder puff. Really, if we haven't got our absolute first choice 23 out, we're struggling. So I mean, yeah, I think money could be elsewhere. I mean, if we are losing Tina, so there's things like Rory Jennings is only on a short contract. He'd be very, with Jockey's preference for a 6-2, he'd be ideal in the 23 jersey because you pretty much cover your whole back. You can almost cover your whole back line having Johan Lloyd in there to equaling levels of chaos.
Chaos, yeah, that is a word to sum up Johan Lloyd. I still don't know his best position because I'm not convinced he's a 10 because he's not controlling 10, and that's why he'd be no good at the Dragons. So what the Dragons need is a game controlling 10, and Johan Lloyd is not that. I actually think he's better at fullback. Yeah, I think he'll do well at Cardiff because he'll fit their style of play. But at Dragons, he won't because that's not what we need. But I actually think he's better fullback. I'm not convinced about him at 10. We saw on Friday night when he played for the Scarlets when Costello went off and Johan Lloyd had to go. He didn't really grab the game by the scruff of the neck. But he is a big talent. I think he'll do okay at Cardiff, actually.
It's a weird one for Johan because for me, it's almost like he doesn't have a position. Like he's best deployed just this when... Similar to a bit of like Nick Tompkins for Wales. Just let you just let him loose and say, let's see what happens. Let's go chaos. You almost unleash him at some point.
Which will suit Cardiff,
because no defenses don't know what he's going to do because he doesn't know what he's going to do until 3 seconds after he's done it.
Yeah, it's instinct. Yeah.
Okay. Then.
Any other signings news, Jane?
Yes, the Ospreys today, they've announced that Captain Jack Morgan has signed a new deal, which is excellent news for both the Ospreys and Welsh Rugby. So, yeah, very good news on that one. And then some injury news then. The Scarlets have confirmed that Sam Costello will be out of action for 12 weeks. He's set to have surgery on his shoulder injury that he suffered against Gloucester, of course. So, yeah, bad news there for Scarlets and Wales, I'm afraid. In terms of news, that's all I have, unless any of you guys want to chip in with anything.
So some re-signings for Cardiff, but we'll go with that on Cardiff Central. Yeah. It's not really massive news.
Did we speak about Regan Grace last week? I can't remember if we did or if it came just after. I don't think
so, but we spoke about that on the pod last week, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh no, was that one that was announced afterwards? I don't know.
I think it came just after, didn't it?
We did on the Welsh. We did on the Welsh one.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Either way, it'll all be on Cardiff Central. Which will be recording tomorrow night.
Well, Ospreys tried to slip one in late. They tried to put one in late this evening, just before we came on air. So, trying to just trip us up on that. But yeah, okay. So, couple of other bits and bobs that are happening this week that you will find more information about on our feeder pods. The under-18s tournament has kicked off because they've gone through the warm-up matches. That was a first round proper last weekend, wasn't it? If I'm right, yeah. Okay. So we'll try and cover as much of the under-18s on the feeder pods as well. And Harley, where are we on the women's tournament? Is it a tournament or is it a league now?
So it's a league. It's a full league. So you've got 6 teams. Two from Scotland, 2 from Ireland, 2 from Wales. We've just had round 4. You've got Gwalia who've beaten Brython home and away, and then beat Glasgow at home this week. Brython yet to pick up a win. In the league, stop being dominated by Edinburgh at the moment, unbeaten. And top the table with a game in hand, as one of the derbies was called off. It's an interesting sort of setup, because if you look at the names on the 2 Irish teams, you'll see the likes of Amy Lee Murphy Crowe, Aoife Wafer, all these top level names, and then and then for like the Welsh teams, you've got like Natalia John playing for Brython, you've got Gwennon Hopkins for Gwalia. So you've got like a couple of key internationals, but most of them all playing GWR. So it's a very weird tournament to gauge. It's been some interesting stuff. I will say Gwalia did steal a win from Paul Glasgow, who's still winless, and I think didn't win a game last season either. But yeah, all these games are on BBC Sport, so feel free to tune in on them. The women's pod regularly posting when the 2 Welsh teams are playing.
And will we be having a women's pod this week?
I believe the plan is next week, but yes.
I thought you said it was going to be this week.
I don't know. They tell me when to turn up.
You need to get yourself a PA, mate. You need to get someone to organise when you're doing pods, and like they can turn up and tell you when all your appointments are and stuff.
It would really help.
Okay,
Nick's going to find this out now. He's doing 3.
Yeah, and you start it and you go, I haven't got a clue which pod I'm actually doing at the minute. So yeah, it would be like that. Okay, so we have a women's pod coming at some point. Cool. Let's move on to games then. So we'll do it in order. So we kicked off on Friday night with Scarlets losing to Gloucester away, 31-7. And it was a weird game to start with. And the chip through for the first try, the chip through comes off the back of his ankle, flips up in the air, goes over the top. And you're just like, you couldn't, if the ball actually does what he's trying to do, we dot it down and it's cleared. So there's little bits like that you just go, okay, that's a bit of luck, and there was a bit of bad luck there, and there's a bit of bad luck there, and it was just too many bits of bad luck to put down to bad luck, if that makes sense. So, it was always going to be a hard game. We picked a very, very inexperienced backline, and Gloucester just absolutely took us to pieces in the backline. I think up front it was fairly competitive, apart from our perpetual Achilles heel, which is defending tight. For whatever reason, we cannot defend tight, whether it's around a ruck, whether it's around a line out. We just don't seem able to defend around there. I've said to you guys before, I'm not that bothered by Europe this year. The one bit that I wanted to make sure in Europe was we came out with no injuries. First 3 minutes, and you've got Johan Lloyd down struggling, and then they score where he would have gone over. And then 10 minutes later, you got Costello off, and 2 tries down, Costello off. Johan Lloyd walking around with a bit of a wobbly head. He probably should have gone off for a HIA. And then I think it was Johan Nicholas came on, and first thing he does is he gets a head crock as well, and you're just like, it's just not going well. Good things that came out of that game. Line out for Fita in the line out was just outstanding. Marnus van der Veer around the pitch. It's just he's called a warthog for a reason. The guy's he's quite tall. You look at him and he looks quite short, but he's over 6 foot for a hooker. So I think he's been superb this year. Max Douglas in the second row was excellent. Alex Craig had a decent enough game, but I think the bit that we lacked, and Josh McLeod, turnover king again. But the bit that we lacked, you take away the backs, yeah, ignore the backs for a second, and the bit that we lacked was somebody just to put a foot on it and say, right, okay, let's stop this for a second. We went into panic mode again really, really early, and we didn't really pull ourselves out of that until subs came on, and with the subs came a bit more experience. So, it's a learning curve. But it's a steep learning curve for some of those backs. Costello at 24 was our oldest back, and he went off, and then Nick came on, and I think he's 26, 27 or whatever. So that significantly improved the
That's a
average age
tough
of our
paper route.
backs. Yeah, but the thing for me, and the thing I was thinking about this game is, rugby is a mental game. Rugby is in your head. 50% of this game is in your head, and our headspace on Friday night was not right for one reason or another. It wasn't right. We panicked. There were opportunities there to do what we do. We're talking about Archie Hughes, with Izzy back and all that kind of stuff, and he has been out for a long time. But his game is built around sniping around the side of rucks, and there was gaps on the side of the rucks, and he was looking at it. He was looking at that gap, and 9 times out of 10, he doesn't take a second look. He just bang, and he's gone. He's so small and wiry, he just gets through, and he causes absolute havoc. But he was looking at it and then going, shall I or not, and then passing, and that really for me just kind of encompassed all of it. The confidence maybe wasn't there from you're looking around, and everybody on that pitch, if you're a back, everybody on that pitch is young and maybe hasn't played at that level, with the exception of Costello and maybe Johan Lloyd. So, I don't think we take it to heart. I don't think we take it and we rip it apart and go, this is disastrous. I saw one comment that said it's time for Peel to go, which, first time this season, we have one bad game and time for Peel to go. But I think generally, loss of support were there. I think it was 11,000 at the stadium, which was for most of our supporters, it was probably closer than Park at Scarlets. So it's the way it is. It was just good to have a load of people out, enjoy the game, and move on. If we don't progress in Europe, I'm genuinely not that bothered this season. I'd much prefer we focus on the URC. So that's my review of that game, gents. And it is what it is. Obviously, Martin and Hugh are recording Scarlet's pod as we speak. So they'll have a lot more detail on that. And Hugh was at the game, and he's published the video of it, which has gone down a storm. So by all means, have a little look for the Saucepans podcast as well. So next game up was Saturday afternoon, Cardiff and Perpignan. And this wasn't on telly, Harley. So this is just you. This is on special viewing. This was on Christmas specials. This was. All
Yeah,
yours.
and you'd have to be special to actually fork out money to pay to watch it. It was just it was a very typical Cardiff thing. Struggle had a horrific wind against us in the first half. Struggled to exit due to physicality. And then failed to make the most of the win then in the second half. I think we did quite well to get a losing bonus point. I think I'd have taken that before the game, but then watching the game, I feel like, a draw. Maybe we could have pushed for a draw. There were a few tough lessons for the likes of Rhys Barrett, who had his first start at 2022 at the loose head, but he came into his own, and then the bench props came on, and they just got absolutely mullered. It was just painful. It was just the same thing of we were getting dragged into a tight game, and we didn't have the physicality to get ourselves out of it. It was, we were missing the likes of a Falletto. We were missing Ben Thomas for most of that game, controlling. The beer was all right in defence, but not really doing much elsewhere. It's. I mean, we'll go into detail of it in the kind of central part, but it just just all the same points we've always gone. We went from having our fate in Europe in our own hands to now we need results to go our way and to beat Connacht, who are looking very, very much like they want to get that top seeding. So that's going to be a hell of a game next week, especially on a 6-day turnaround.
Connacht were outstanding on the weekend, weren't they? They're considering they used to be seen as the fourth region in Ireland. There's hope for the Dragons yet, James. Trust me.
Well, if we had their funding, maybe yes. They have got a considerable larger budget than the Dragons. Let's not forget.
Yeah, but at one point they didn't. So all in all, then Harley, was it worth paying to watch Cardiff and Perpignan?
Not if you're not a Cardiff fan. It was not a game for the neutrals. I think 23-20 had ended. You didn't really get any tries. It was quite stop-start. I mean, if you're a scrum lover, it was great. Apart from if you're a Cardiff fan who loves scrums. But I mean, I don't know any Cardiff fan who loves scrums other than me, mum, and she's just a bit wonky like
that. Well, I'll go back one. What I will say about Scarlets Gloucester, commentary on Premier Sports was shocking. Absolutely disgraceful. The amount of times that they got players' names wrong and then actively cheering every time Gloucester got the ball just really wound me up. So, if anyone from Premier Sports listening, then yes, I wasn't very happy.
Can I just say though, that was still I listened to that game and the commentary was worse than the commentary on the Cardiff game, of which there was none. Which on another point, if EPCR, if you're charging people €8 to watch a live stream, chuck someone in a booth. The Celtic Challenge were able to, just throw Dave Rogers and Alan Snowsill into a booth just to start doing some talking. And the BBC have the budget of whatever cash they find in the back of the sofa. So I think you can afford that.
We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do the commentary on a game. That'll be a laugh, Howard. We'll bring back drink of the week just before kickoff, and then we'll do the commentary. I'd like that.
It'd be 20 minutes of me explaining to you that the rules aren't the same as when you were a lad, Lee.
Oh, shut up!
Like we do in the chat.
Right, let's move on to Ospreys Newcastle. So 35-15, Nick. What did you make of the game?
A routine win, really. I thought we'd win. Obviously, Newcastle didn't send their strongest side and not one of the strongest teams anyway, are they? A couple of the better players, Karamchik and Adam Radwan weren't playing. They put up a fight, as you would expect. But once we started to get on top, we actually didn't look too bad in attack. You can start to see some slightly more adventurous play from us. It's early days, of course, and obviously that depends on how good the defence is against you. But we got on the outside a couple of times, scored a couple of good tries that way. Just like to give a big shout out to Will Spencer. He was signed, I think, on a short-term contract. I think he's 32, going on 33, perhaps later on this season. But he's been a really good recruit. I would be very keen to sign him on a 2-year contract post-season. I think he's got a couple of years left in his legs. And he's that nasty, big lump of a man. And if Adam Beard is leaving, he's got commit a few crimes yet, but if he is allegedly going to Montpellier, he'd be ideal to further strengthen the squad. So I do hope we're considering that. And I just as an aside, I think other than you, because the Scarlets, who probably have got enough depth in the second row, I think that I do question where our recruitment teams were over the summer, because if he was available, he would have done a job for any one of the three of us, Cardiff, Dragons, and by hook or by crook, we've got him at the Ospreys. So, otherwise, the team played reasonably well. Obviously, Jack was Jack. Tipuric still played very well, and he's an important part of our team. Ruben Morgan-Williams, again, is playing well. Dan Edwards has a good game. And Kasende looks a decent signing as well for us on the wing, offering a bit more depth out wide. A bit of bad news before kickoff was that Reece Henry, has picked up another injury and is going to be out for a few months.
That's a shame. I
and
like
that is a big. I do as well. He's had a hard paper round as well because he's still only about 25, 26, isn't he?
I think he took you and Nick's paper round, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think he's a skillful player, and I think his tight head prop work is improving as well. So that is a shame. I think he could have really pushed on if he'd have had a good run of games, but that's the nature of rugby, isn't it? You know, you've just, if you have 5, 6 games on the run without any picking up an injury, you're doing pretty well. But overall, obviously, very pleased. We've got the 10 points now. We've qualified for the round of 16. Whatever happens on, I remember playing now. Is it Friday night?
Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday we play. Sorry, on Saturday for the third year on the run. We're through to the last 16. Obviously, we'll see how we go on Saturday in Po. But I'm glad we're still in the competition.
So I'm just gonna. I know we said we were going to dwell on these too much, but I still cannot get my head around, Nick, and we'll talk about this on the IRE tomorrow. How many people were at that game?
Yeah,
Because I think it was like 3,500, something like that. This is one of the biggest, the second biggest city in Wales.
Yeah,
and you've now got a successful side. You've got all the boxes that were, not being ticked before now. And 3,000.
I can't explain. Well, the only thing I think maybe is added, I think we just touched on it before, is the fact that a lot of people know we're moving. A lot of people don't like Swansea.com. There's no atmosphere there, and that goes even when they were getting 7,000 or 8,000. There was no atmosphere there. It's not the best ground for that respect. It's too big. So I think people, if obviously it's a big concern if we're only getting 3,000 this time next year, when we're at St Helens, because that is a big concern. I think we need to just take a little bit of a step back and see how that develops at the new stadium before we make too much of a judgment.
I just interject for this point, because I was under the impression that because it's an Anglo-Welsh fixture, it should be an automatic sellout, because all Anglo-Welsh fixtures are the best, and therefore they will sell out every week.
That's just the Cardiff, I think, isn't it? Just seems to be at Cardiff, doesn't it?
No, but that's what you get on social media, isn't it? And Newcastle a big travelling fans group in the English Prem? I doubt it very much. If they're playing down at Gloucester,
I've looked at it before when we've had Newcastle in the Challenge Cup, and it's like 5.5 hour drive. And you're like, it'd be quicker to go to Dublin. At least I can make a weekend of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that one in a bit more depth tomorrow, Nick. But the call has got to be, put your money where your mouth is, and let's get down the stadium, one last time. So cool. Okay, so I can see Mr. Happy in the corner. Dragons versus Po, James. I know this gets harder and harder for you every week, doesn't it?
You've got no idea, mate. None of you on this pod got no idea.
I do. I read your messages on the pod, on the WhatsApp group, and I go, he's really. Normally, if it was one of the others that was putting something like that there, you'd have a little bit of banter, you'd have a little bit of a dig, you'd have a little bit of, let's wind them up a little bit. And then I see you putting it, and I go, I'm not going to touch that one. I'm just, the guy's hitting. Go on, mate. 15-24 loss at home.
Yeah, very poor performance. Probably the worst performance of the season at Ronnie Parade, I would say. It was a very low quality game. Very damaging result against a second string Po team that, to be honest, looked half-assed. They looked like they were going through the motions. They were there for the taking, but unfortunately, we just weren't good enough. Dragons were second best in pretty much every area of the game. The scrum was absolutely minced. Our attack was clueless. Too many missed passes and loop passes that just wasn't going to hand. The kicking game was aimless. Our discipline was really poor. The line out creaked. You look at the stats from the game, they're pretty damning actually. So we had 75% line out success, just a 60% scrum success. I mean, I thought it was lower than that, to be honest. I mean, the scrum was absolutely destroyed, and 75% tackle success. very hard to take positives from that performance. I guess the only real positives were the individual performances of guys like Aaron Wainwright, Tane Basham was excellent again, Rio Dyer, and I thought Harry Ackerman on his return was really good as well. So he suffered that awful leg injury, didn't he, when he was playing for Wales under-20s against France. This was his first return in a Dragons jersey, be going really well for Newport, and I thought he was quite good. It was also nice to see Elliot Dee back. And Warren Gatland said today in his press conference that he was happy with Elliot's performance and his experience in the Six Nations is going to be crucial. So he got through that game unscathed. But other than that, yeah, a very Dragonsy performance, just not good enough. We haven't got the confidence or the quality at the moment. Really hard to see where the next win is coming from. And it doesn't get any easier for the Dragons now because they've got a 6-day turnaround. They've got to go to Johannesburg and face the Lions. And it's shit or bust, really. They need to win. It's winner takes all, or they can draw. With neither side getting a bonus point. That's the only way Dragons can go through. But yeah, it's looking like mission impossible. And bear in mind, the Dragons have never won a game in South Africa. So history is against them as well. So yeah, a very, very disappointing result for the Dragons. And it just doesn't get any easier, I'm afraid. 3 games in 14 days for a squad that's got an injury list and low on quality. What can you do? It's tough. They've been shafted by a schedule and they just haven't got the quality, depth and resources to cope with a situation like this, I'm afraid.
So how do you go about rebuilding that team now? I don't want to say rebuilding, but do you know what I mean? Because if you rebuild, you've got to take a whole load of stuff out, put it back together, start from the bottom, build the basics, all of that kind of stuff. It's a 3 or a 4 year process. And we all thought that's what Dave Flanagan was doing. That didn't work out. To start rebuilding again now, that would be about the 4th or the 5th time I can remember somebody coming in and saying, we're rebuilding.
Yeah.
If you had the magic wand, where do you go with it?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? So you see supporters say we need a big clear out. We need to clean a lot of deadwood. But the problem is we had that under Bernard Chapman. And we've also had it under Dean Ryan as well. We've been through this before. We've had big clear outs. I think for me, it just comes down to investment. We have got to seriously invest in the playing squad and the coaching staff. All we keep hearing from Rhys Blumberg, the CEO, and David Buttress is we are 3 wealthy owners willing to invest. And it's getting to the point now where it's time to put their money where their mouth is. They have got to go out and head of recruitment, John Westwood. He's got a big job on his hands because he's got to try and convince players to come to a team that's just known for losing. This is an organisation embedded in failure. And that's really hard when you're trying to attract quality players because nobody wants to play for a team that's losing week in, week out. But I think we're at the point now where Dragons have always lacked investment. That's the problem. They have never had serious investment. They've never had a Peter Thomas. They never had a Cuddy. They never had anyone like that. Yes, they had Brown, but that was in the early days and that was with Newport. It was never really money pumped into the Dragons. So I think the only way out of this mess is major surgery, and they're going to have to seriously invest in the playing and the coaching squad. That's the only way I can see the Dragons improving because the majority of the players that we have are just not good enough. And we've spoke about this on Dragons, Lemmy and Gavin. We got a lot of players who are probably SRC, Super Rugby Cymru standard. They're players who could probably do a job in the English Championship, clubs for Nottingham or Ampthill or Ealing, that's fine. But for URC standard, they're just not good enough. Too many players that would really struggle to get contracts in any other team in the league. But it comes down to investment for me now. We've had a lot of talk. Time to get your wallet out and start investing because otherwise I just don't see how the Dragons are ever going to get out this cycle of failure that they just keeps happening every single season. This is the best part of a decade now. It's not like Dragons have had a lean couple of years. They've been a good team, but they've had a lean couple of years like Ulster or Munster. They have been poor now for the best part of a decade. And something has got to change quite drastically because we can't have another 10 years of this. And I don't think Welsh Rugby can either, to be brutally honest.
I mean, on a positive note, Jane, just think how much money the pod is saving you in therapy. Because you get to come on every week and just let it all out and just get it all out there. And then people will come in and tell you that they love you and all of this kind of stuff. We're saving you 100-odd quid a week in therapy, mate. You can put that in the back pocket.
We've had good feedback from the pods and people like honesty. You know, if you listen to other pods, they just want to talk about how good their team is and they don't focus on the flaws in the organisation. Whereas me and Gavin have been very honest about the team and the organisation as a whole, and people respect that. They just want honesty. You know, we're not going there to be overly negative and criticise for the sake of it. We're generally quite worried, actually, about where the club is heading and, you know, the state of the club, because we both recognise this can't go on. We've done listeners' Q&As, and the comments we are getting, people have had enough. And I used the example on the Dragons pod as well last night. I spoke to a guy who sits by me and Dad. He's been a season ticket holder for 22 years. And he said to me and Dad yesterday, I'm thinking of not renewing next year. I've had enough. And there's a lot of these people now. I'm seeing a lot of comments on social media and Dragons forums who are saying, I've been a season ticket holder for a long time and I've had enough now. And that's what the club want to be worried about. Because if you start losing those, the hardcore support, that club is in big, big trouble.
This is why we should put you first. We can go upwards then. Right. So if you are enjoying what you're hearing and liking what you're seeing, then please do give us a like and rate and review on various platforms and all of that kind of stuff. Makes a massive difference, and you get to see all our lovely faces more often than that way. So and on that, guys, just quickly, we passed another one of those milestones on YouTube. Was it 200,000 downloads, something like that, 200,000 views on our YouTube channel, which is, you know, fantastic for a channel that didn't really start getting going until just over 12 months ago. So yeah, thank you everyone for your subscriptions and your likes and your shares and all of that kind of stuff on YouTube. It is greatly appreciated. While I'm talking YouTube, if you fancy joining the team and doing a couple of videos or coming on and doing pods and all of that malarkey, don't matter which pod, let us know. We'll always make space for somebody that's got something to say and who is interesting to listen to, not necessarily look at. You know, we could pretty much recruit anybody and it would be a step up where it comes to look at, guys. Right, let's move on to previews for this weekend then. So, Harley, you're lucky. So you kick off against Connaught and on telly on Friday night. I'm assuming it's on telly because it's Friday night. So, yeah. Expectations for Connaught?
So Connaught's one of those teams we tend to do quite well with at Cap, so fingers crossed, but they are going to be, you would feel they're going for this. Although they've got top spots sewn up, they're not guaranteed home, well, I think guaranteed home quarter, but not necessarily home semi-final. So I imagine they're still going to want to make sure they get a couple of points out of that. I expect, given the changed team that we put out, we're probably going to go a lot more full strength, and it's probably going to be a last chance to see some of the Wales call-up players, as I imagine they'll be in camp for the game against the Sharks, which is great news when I found out they're sending a full squad, but that's for next week's pod. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a bonus point win. Like that, to go anywhere in the Challenge Cup, we basically got to go a bonus point win. Otherwise, we're at risk of someone like Perpignan getting a result over in Zebra, who've not been playing well in any competition, really. Overtaking us and then potentially pushing us out. In fact, even the cheat going, if Leon take one eye off the ball and Cheetahs do a job on them, that could be us. So we end up in fourth. You know, we're basically hoping for best third place to get a home round of 16. Most likely we're going to end up going away to one of the top ranked Challenge Cup sides. Saying that even if we get a home draw, it would be one of the Champions Cup teams. So I'm not sure necessarily that's other than the financial benefit. I don't think that's going to be great.
So your score expectation then on Friday night would be?
Many scores. Well, it's either going to be many scores because defence is optional, or there's going to be no scores because attack is optional from both sides. Where neither team can get the book, when neither team's able to keep hold of the ball, which is very Connaught Cardiff.
Should we put it down then as a 33-all draw then, should we? Is that
it's
your
either
prediction?
A 3-all or a 33-all draw.
Okay, it's a good job we're not doing a league. If we were doing a league on this, I'd absolutely nail you down to that one. Right, Nick, Ospreys travel away to Poe on a Saturday, so 1 o'clock kickoff. I think this is on Premier Sports, but I've not got it in front of me, so I want. So you talk, and I'll look and see if it's on Premier Sports.
Hard game. Paul went, as Jamie alluded to, went brilliant on Sunday, yesterday. But they'll pick a different team at home. They have got some, even at Rodney Parade, some of the second strings are a big pack. You're just guaranteed, and when you play a French team, they're going to be a strong scrummaging team, strong mauling team. So that's going to be difficult. You might see the likes of Joe Simmons. I think he's there outside half. Was at Exeter. They got a good centre. I think he's Emmeline Galiton, who's played for France. 21, 22-year-old. Harry Williams, I saw came on against the Dragons. Good tight head prop. So it's a tough ask. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of team we take there. Are we going to go there and try and get 4 points? Are we going to? So do we pick Jack? Does Dan Edwards play again? It'll be very interesting to see who we take. Or do we pick a team with the following week in mind, home to Benetton? So we'll see, but a tough ask. And I think we'll hold our own, hopefully, up front, because we've got plenty of depth now in the front five on the whole. So, but I don't anticipate us winning, if I'm honest.
That game, which is annoying because it's going to be an actual pool decide, and that's going to determine a lot of how the pool and the thing is. That's only been listed as beIN Sports and Flow Rugby, so that's going to be the pay your €8 for the PCR TV.
Yeah, so as I was about to say, yeah, that and Cardiff is on Premier Sports. The only one actually on normal telly this week is Scarlets, which is on S4C. So, Jamie, your game is. Oh, hang on, we didn't get a prediction, an actual score. You said you were going to lose, but how badly are we going to?
Well, I don't think we'll. Hopefully, I don't want any repeat of what happened out in Montpellier, which was just not acceptable. So, say 29-14.
29. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to write it down and hold you to it next week, Nick, but I'm not, mate. No.
You need a point to guarantee third place.
Yeah,
match points.
I'm not anticipating that. I think we'll lose 4-0 points wise.
Yeah, I think they'll just go for the losing bonus point, the try bonus points. That way, you could lose by 80 odd points as long as you get 4 tries on the board. You're sorted.
Yeah. We'll see from the team.
Yeah. Jamie, away in, let's say, in Johannesburg, again, not on the telly either. So that's another one. Yeah. So what are you making of the trip down to Johannesburg, mate?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, 6-day turnaround. So Dragons fly out on Tuesday. So they won't have very long to acclimatise and prep. Play the Lions on the Saturday. They can't travel home the same day because of EPCR rules, so they have to fly out the next day. So it'll be on Sunday. Come home and face Munster on the Saturday. How has that happened? Who's organised that? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not going to go into it now because I had a rant on the Dragons later, but South African teams in Europe is not working for anyone. It is absolutely ridiculous. I know it works both ways. The South Africans have to come over here as well. But it's absolutely ridiculous now that Dragons got to fly nearly 10,000 miles just to play a game of rugby. It's not right. It's absolutely bonkers. But it is what it is. The injury list is building. Kai Evans came off with ligament injury, so he's in crutches. That'll he'll be out now for the rest of the season, I would imagine. Angus O'Brien, the captain, he came off early with a hand injury. No idea what kind of team the Dragons are going to take. Are they going to go full strength? Philo has not played a full strength team at all during this tournament. Do the Welsh internationals go to South Africa? I don't think Gatlin would be too happy with that, would he? So I don't know how they're going to approach this game. I got to be honest, I don't really care now. I think Europe is done. I cannot see a way how Dragons can win this game given the turnaround and the fact they got to play at high altitude. I think Lions going to thump them, I'm afraid to say. It could get pretty ugly, actually. And I'm not really that bothered about it. I just think now it's time to concentrate on the league. You know, I'm like you, Lee. I'm not bothered now. Because I just can't see Dragons winning in South Africa. There's something they've never done. And against the Lions. So the Lions played Montpellier. They sent a weakened squad, got hammered. So they're at home. They're going to go full strength, aren't they? Because they want to progress to Europe. So yeah, it's set up for the Dragons to fail. I just cannot see. Well, put it this way, it will be one of the shocks of the season if Dragons actually go there and beat Lions at Ellis Park in Johannesburg. It would be one of the shocks of the season, given the injury list and how they're playing and the turnaround and everything. So it would be a massive upset. But no, I can't see Dragons getting anything out of this game, I'm afraid.
I'll push the other boys for a score. I'm not going to push you for a score, Jane, because
No, you
I
could
think
have
you
my
want to.
score. No, I got my prediction. You could have mine.
Go on
I've
then,
gone
what's your
Lions by 26.
Okay. I was expecting like 50 odd or something like that.
No,
I'm
I've gone
just getting
Lions by
those kind of
26.
vibes. Okay,
Yeah.
mate. So Saturday then, so 5:30, Scarlets against Van. It is on telly, it's on S4C, so we all get to have a little lovely watch. But like I've said already, I'm not that bothered. It would be nice to get quite a few people into the ground, and everyone who lives up the M4 that thinks it's okay to nip into Gloucester. Well, maybe you could make a couple extra miles down and come and see us at home. Other than that, I don't. I'm just not that. But it's just not gripping me this year. We made a decent start in the league, and I want us to focus on the league. And I want us to go right. Okay, this is where we need to be. And if we're gonna put, we're playing at home, so we have to put a strong team out. We have to go there and do something. Will Van be up for it? With what's the situation between us and Van qualifying, Harley? I think
It's
are we pretty
basically
much out
winner
of it?
takes all. Winner takes quite probably the third place spot. So you've still got a chance of a home round of 16,
Right.
depending
I
how
mean, that's
results
worth
go.
playing for. That's worth playing for, isn't it? Like, even if
Yeah,
the
it
Dragons
is.
won, we can't get a home tie. So it just seems pretty pointless, you know? If
Yeah.
we get a chance for a home tie, that's worth playing for.
And also
It's a
financially, isn't
very
it?
slim chance because it depends on because
On
you're
other
looking for
people
one of
showing
those
it.
best third place
Yeah,
finishes
you are,
because the
yeah.
best you will get is third. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's I mean it's possible because second and third at the moment are Gloucester and Bayonne, both on 9 points. So that's going to be unless they
Yeah.
both get a draw with try bonus points, both
But
Scarlets and Van can get third.
yeah, it's almost like we're because we're quite close to it. It's worth competing for. I'd almost prefer us to be a little bit further down, so we go right. Okay, we're not going to bother with it, and we're just going to focus on the league. And the danger is we pick up more injuries. Things might not go right, and then it starts to get into your head, and then it becomes a head game, and we're notoriously not right at getting the head game right in Wales. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see a full ground. I would love to see a full ground, and I would love to see us turn on the magic and do all the sexy stuff. Uh, I may go and watch the game myself. No, not this week. I'll probably go and watch the Edinburgh game. But I won't be there for this one. But it would be nice to see a nice big full ground. Other than that, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to go Scarlets 30, Van 25. And hope it's a good game and all of that. But if it's the other way around, I'm not that bothered. And if it's a complete shambles, will we go back into the URC with a very weakened back line, and we go from there. So that's it for me.
I don't think you've got any choice about that. Whether or not you've got it, whether or not you
I know it's
no
shit.
matter what you do for this game.
So we will we'll see where we go on that. And now we will move on to the main proceedings for this evening. The Wales squad, which was announced at 2 p.m. this afternoon. So we're recording Monday night. So launched this afternoon. General thoughts. Let's start with you, Jamie. General thoughts on the squad, just overall.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's a few names that stick out. The two positions I was looking at was hooker and tight head. They were the ones that I had my eye on when the squad came out. So glad to see Elliot D there. It was really important he came through unscathed for the Dragons. He offers experience, and Gatland was really pleased with his return. And then you got Evan Lloyd and Sam Parry as well. Remember they had that bust up him in Gatland, so it was a case of, well, we know what Gatland is like. He can hold a grudge. So after he had that bust up, would he bring him back? But he has, and I'm pleased because I really like Sam Parry. But the one name that really stands out to me in the tight end is Will Griff-John. Will Griff-John, he's back. That guy, he just keeps coming back, doesn't he? So
After 170 minutes for sale this season.
well, that's the thing.
And one start.
He's barely getting any game time. Although to be fair, I did watch the Stormers and Sale game on Saturday, and he did play in that. So it's interesting, Will Griff-John. So he's only got a couple of caps, but he is eligible for Wales because when he left the Scarlets, they're saying that there wasn't a credible offer by any of the regions. So he left. I mean, let's be honest,
Because he
that's
was
fair enough.
shit.
Exactly, yeah. So that explains it. But I think it just shows just how big a tight head cupboard is, that we are having to go back to Will Griff-John. But then again, what are the other alternatives? I don't know. You're not going to be having guys like Chris Coleman from the Dragons in there, are you? I mean, I don't know, but they've gone back to Will Griff-John.
The only other option really is Dylan Lewis, who's equally not played as much.
Is he injured or is he fit?
No, he's fit.
I don't know about. I thought he was fit. I didn't know it say anything about him being injured, but I know he's. But I mean, I know the argument thrown at Dylan Lewis as well. He's not been playing for Quins, but he's had about 80 more. He's probably had about a full game of rugby more than Will Griff-John. But yeah, tight head's bare.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially Littrick basically seeming like he's thrown his hat in with Scotland.
Yeah, that's it. But
the only other option is Ben Warren, but I think he might be injured as well.
No, he came on Saturday, but he's not in.
So, I mean,
but again,
I know
he's not ready he's not ready for international rugby yet.
Half the players we've been thrown in aren't ready. I mean,
that's
when we get on to 10s, that's going to be the interesting one.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of 10s, I mean, Dan Edwards is in, and I'm really pleased about that. And I know a lot of people say, no, he's not ready, but he has been really, really good. And I am glad he's there. Anscombe, now, I thought he was injured, but it turns out, listening to Scrum 5 earlier, Gareth Anscombe is actually fit. Warren Gatland's chosen not to select him. But when you look at the 10s, you've got Dan Edwards and Ben Thomas. So there's no experience here. I think that's quite risky. And then you look at the outside backs. Ellis Mee, what a rise that is. I mean, goodness me, we didn't expect him to be fast-tracked into Wales that soon, did we? Blair Murray is there. Josh Adams, great to have the experience there. Talupe Faletau. I think, for me, I'm just glad to see guys like Liam Williams, Elliot D, Talupe Faletau, because I think they will offer a bit of experience and quality, and that's what we have been lacking. It does give me some hope that Wales can avoid the wooden spoon, just having those guys back. But on the whole, yeah, there are some areas of concern which we'll go into, a couple of odd selections. But on the whole, I think it's a decent squad. But I am a little bit concerned about the lack of experience of fly half, and obviously tight end I'm a bit concerned about as well. But other than that, I think it's decent.
Okay. So let's pick apart the forwards first then, Harley. I mean, where do you want to start in the forwards? Can you pick Gatland's 8 from there? Or can you pick 5 or 6 of the 8 from there?
I think you can have a pretty good go on what he's done before. So you're looking at Gareth Thomas is going to be a starter. Starting loose head because he's just showing the form and he's going to stick with him. It's also one of our heaviest options who has a bit of ballast. Tight head, I'm a bit more because I'm not sure if Henry Thomas was injured during the autumn or he just wasn't selected or what. And he has been favouring Kieran Azarati, but Azarati is one of the lightest of the front rowers. Actually, and he's quite short as well as that thing. So you do something there. So you actually want to, if you're going to pick Gareth Thomas, you want to tight end and a hooker who match. So there you're looking actually in terms of height, Evan Lloyd and Henry Thomas. I'd probably go Elliot D and Henry Thomas. So you've got a really good set piece front row. All right, I know Elliot D's not the strongest scrimmaging hooker, but with 2 good scrimmaging props. So second row is going to be Dav Jenkins, Will Rowlands. Just is. And then back row, you're probably looking at Jack Morgan, Aaron Wainwright and Talupe Faletau as your out-and-out best 3. And I think that's a good balance because they all It's a very good hard working back row with Jack Wilfret from Jack Morgan, 2 line out options. You've got a pack then with 4 options. So I think that's probably your bench then is looking a bit more iffy. Do you stick with Evan Lloyd and Sam Parry stays as that 3rd choice hooker, or does he have a wobbling throw out if you do that again? Maybe Nicky Smith is your bench loose head. I know Mart will be screaming how it should be Kenzie Mathias's jersey for the 1 and 17 jersey. Bench tight head for me, it's Azarati or Henry Thomas, whichever one's left lying around. Not sure what you do with the 19, and then the back row sub, I'd probably go James Botham more because he covers all 3. And then the Cardiff bias would say Teddy Williams is probably your best out and out lock of the other lock options, but you could see him picking a Shunza or Freddie Thomas.
More utility, and I think the thing for me with those 4,
for me, Freddie Thomas is probably more utility. He's the shortest of the so-called of the out and out second rows.
But I think you look at that and you go, there's still not a massive. There's more experience in the forwards than there is in the backs, but
only just really.
Yeah, but it's still not a massively. I had this conversation with somebody on Saturday night on Twitter that if you don't give the players the time on the pitch, they're not going to become experienced. You can't just automatically demand that we put a pack out with half of them with over 50 caps, So,
but as we pointed out with the Bernard Jack Madeira Dragons, just throwing them on the pitch isn't necessarily good experience. So your forwards, you've got an average of 23 caps through the squad, 22 for the backs. You're looking at an average of 28 for forwards, 26 for the backs. And then you got height and weight if you're really that interested. But
what happens if you take Faletau out of that? He carries a lot of those caps, doesn't he?
Yeah, if you take him out, so he's our only Centurion in the squad. Although Sanjay's not too far away. You go down to an average of 18 caps.
Jeez, I didn't realise
in the forwards. It does help. It doesn't help that you've got the likes of Henry Thomas, who is a seasoned scrummager type person, only has 4. Rogus John only has 2.
Plus 4 for England.
Yeah, well, it only gives me. I only put in the Wales caps.
No. Yeah, but yeah, the other thing is, of course, you got Beard as well, who would have been in the squad if he was fit, and would have added, experience and not as many caps. But obviously, Dewi.
I am surprised Chunza's in, not because I don't rate him. No. I've defended him to the hilt on this pod, but even when everyone else has gone against me. But he's not played. He's just not playing for Exeter. I mean, I know that doesn't necessarily exclude him, but he's not going to improve on either of his lock or his back row, his 6 play, because he gets thrown in on the wrong side of the flank because Rob Baxter doesn't know how to set up a back row. And he's in a losing team. Again, saying that doesn't exclude you from Wales squad these days.
You'd struggle to pick
from Wales.
Maybe that's why more Cardiff players have been cut, is because they're actually winning. They've started winning a few games, and now it's like, oh no, you don't know what you're doing now. We only want people who lose all their games.
That's one of those things where you say it and then you go, oh yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Okay, but
so just a couple of names who were thrown in there. I don't know. So obviously, there's no Ollie Cracknell. Everyone's saying how great he's been for Leicester. I've been watching them. Not really. He's just benefited from being in a very dominant pack, and then you can do whatever you like with an 8. Obviously, Morgan. I've noticed there was almost no Morgan Morris chat this time round, because I think everyone's just accepted he's not getting in.
Yeah, he's not.
For me, I know he's not. He's only just come back from long-term. They've only just come back from long-term injury. But for me, James Fender, and Rhys Davis, I thought maybe you would have had one of those two would have had a shout, particularly Fender, because he is, as the technical term is, a unit.
I think
so. I was surprised he didn't get a sniff, because that's the sort of player that we probably could have done with.
I think that there's just too many players there with not massive amount of game times. This season, Faletau's only just come back from injury. Even the players who haven't been injured aren't necessarily putting in, consistent game time. So might keep them fresh, might make them a bit more hungry. Don't know. But
There's a load of notable omissions from this squad, mine. So Cam Winnett, Rio Dyer, these guys have been ever present in Wales teams, in the past year or so. They're not included. Rio Dyer, I can kind of understand. I think Rio's been hot and cold this season. He was excellent yesterday, but it has been a struggle for him playing in the Paul Dragons team, and I don't think the attack that we got at the moment is helping him, but he's not included. Max Llewellyn, now that's a big talking point, isn't it? No Max Llewellyn. Gatlin was talking today, saying that about his performance against South Africa, he barely got the ball. And I thought, well, the system didn't exactly help him. And playing against South Africa, is going to be difficult for him, but he's not included. Obviously, Anscombe, everyone said he was injured. No, he is fit. Ruben Morgan-Williams, he's been excellent for the Ospreys. He's not in there. Ellis Bevan is, who I'm very sceptical about, I got to be honest. Now, as much as I love Rodri Williams, should he be in the Wales squad? I probably prefer him at Dragons, if I'm being honest. And then you got guys like Corey Domachowski. What's happened to him? He seems to have fallen off the radar for Wales, doesn't he? Brodie Coughlan's unlucky. Davis Fender. Tane Basham. I mean, Dragons fans today on the forums are saying it's ridiculous he's not selected. I think Tane has had an outstanding season for the Dragons. I'd say he's probably our best player this season. But he's got so much back row competition. And if you're going to include Tane, I say to people, well, who are you going to drop? Because, you're not going to drop Rafael. You're not going to drop Morgan. You're not going to drop Jim Botham, who I really like, I'm a big fan of. He's just a victim, Tane Basham, of the back row depth that we got. There's a lot of notable omissions in our squad, but I think the biggest ones are Cam Winnett, Rio Dyer, and Max Llewellyn. I thought Max Llewellyn would be there. And why is Nick Tompkins in the squad? If you go back to the autumn, he did not get a sniff, but yet he's still in the squad. It's really strange. What's the purpose of Nick Tompkins for Wales now?
I mean, let's be fair, we've been asking that since his first cap.
Indeed, but what's his role now?
I'm a bit more in favour of Nick Tompkins. I don't think he's fantastic. He plays steadily for Saracens. He's a regular player. Our centre partnership in the World Cup, remember, wasn't that bad with Tompkins and North, 12 and 13.
No, it wouldn't.
So I think he has got something to offer. And I think it's maybe just a case of, do you just need somebody, especially if you've got a young player like Dan Edwards starting at 10, somebody who's got 50 caps at inside centre?
Sorry, I just want to butt in there because I want to point out, and I'm going to trash this argument, because Nick Tompkins is absolutely crap when you've got an inexperienced 10. He does not help you. Like, if you watch every time he's played outside Costello gets absolutely shafted pretty much every time, because what you want your 12 to do when you're inexperienced 10 is take pressure off of you. Nick Tompkins just adds pressure. He worked well in the World Cup because you had Dan Biggar, who was an incredible thing, and it can rein him in. His best games with Saracens have always been when you've had the likes of Owen Farrell inside. When you've got an experienced 10, you can let him unleash chaos, because he is a chaos monkey. Like, he is brilliant at that. But when you need to get a 10 to learn the ropes of the game, he's probably last. Now, Dan Edwards might have, because there's going to be he's probably going to have a lot of minutes at 10 this Six Nations. I think we've got to accept that. And I think the Welsh public have got to bear with him, and just what's going to go wrong is going to go wrong. It will. It inevitably will, because there's no experienced head to come on. Right?
Yeah, the other thing.
But Tompkins doesn't help with that. Like, Owen Watkin at 12 will help. He will probably do that. And I'm not sure Eddie James is the option, who's probably going to be your forerunner of 12, because I think Gatland's going to go back to the big lump at 12. He's giving up on his big lump at 13. He's going for the big lump at 12 again.
I think what we've all here discussed is we've got no idea who our 12, 13 will be. And I don't think he has either, to be honest here. So it's like we could all pick a team now, and we probably, each one of us would have different 12 and 13, because we've got no idea who our best combination is, and what, and as I say, it's all up in the air. I think it's whoever trains well in the week leading up to the France game, probably.
Yeah, Gatland values training, doesn't he? He talks about that being a factor. Joe Roberts, that's an interesting selection. Big fan of Joe Roberts. And again, Gatland talked about him being a left foot option. How many games have he played for the Scarlets, Lee? He's barely had any game time, have he?
He played 1 or 2 at the start of the season and then went down injured. Or no, was he injured on Wales duty? He was injured right at this.
he was injured in the France game where he had a good game. When Watkin played 12 and he played 13, and they didn't look too bad for 60 minutes. And then he disappeared after that. I think he picked up something, and he's only just got back. And but
he has had a horrid time with his knee. And as a Scarlet, I cannot see the point in putting him back in the Welsh squad. I can see now us sitting here next week and going, like, Joe Roberts has been given 60 minutes against Van and something's gone wrong. He's picked up an injury. He's out of the squad. Do you know what I mean? The whole point of managing players back through their injury is that you give them 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You work with them. You look at how they're doing. You look at all their figures. You don't go, he's played 20 minutes against Gloucester when we were getting pummeled. He's good for a Welsh squad. It just doesn't sit right with me. And I think we've got other options at 13. If Joe Roberts had been playing all season and was all singing, all dancing, I'd be, yeah, absolutely, this is the way. And you put Eddie James inside him, and those two work like a jigsaw. They do. They've come all the way through academy together. They work well together. To ask him to come back and go straight up to international standards just doesn't make sense to me. I think the best pairing that we've had in the centres over the last couple of years has been Watkin and Joe Roberts, but I'd be tempted to put Watkin inside centre to look after Dan Edwards, and then I'd maybe look at outside centre, putting Tompkins there to give you that batshit crazy kind of like, let's go have a disco. But I can't.
I don't like Tompkins at 13. I know but I think he's even worse at 13 than 12.
I think he's great in attack. It's his defense at 13.
Yeah,
that's where Scarlets were pulled apart on Friday night. If your 13 is not an absolute on the dot, this is what you do in every single. That's where Jonathan Davis was superb, and we relied so much on him that we never brought anybody through with that same kind of mentality of how do you watch 4 different options and pick the right option 80% of the time.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That is one of Joe Roberts' strengths. Is he is actually quite good on that decision making. The question is he up to the pace to be able to do it? Is another story.
After 20 minutes,
Joe Roberts is. I mean, the other big comment. So one of the other players that got singled out was Ellis Mee, and they're talking about him being a fullback. And he's one of the tallest players in the backline. So all right, fair enough. But it seems really weird that Gatland is picking a lot of play at new caps, with specifically mentioning fullback, which says to me although Cam Winter has been arguably was one of the best players last year, and everyone's raving about how well he's played, it seems like Gatland wants to get rid of him. Like he like from the start, he's like, no, this is not what I want. And instead of saying that, he just seems to be finding absolutely everyone. He tried Liam Williams in Australia. I don't actually think it worked as well as people think it did.
Blair Murray.
They tried Blair Murray against South Africa. I'm not going to say that was his fault. That is not a game to test whether or not you're fullback. Again, going back to the Max Dwelly thing, like you can't have a go at a 13 for not getting the ball when your team doesn't have any possession, and then when they do have possession, it's the set piece goes wrong, or they get blasted off the ball in the ruck. So let's, don't go throwing him under the bus because you've decided what you want is a big lad at 12.
Have you ever heard?
And that's
any
what
other
it's going to come down, which is why I'm convinced Eddie James is going to start at 12.
Have you ever heard any other coach who's obsessed about having left-footed players in the team? It's madness to me.
I mean, you get a lot of coaches who will, on the off chance, say, "Oh, well, he's a good option because he can kick off both feet." Or blah, blah, blah.
It's a bonus, but it seems like a deciding factor for Gatland.
Yeah, Ellis Bevan. I mean, that's why Ellis Bevan's in the squad clearly is because of his left foot. Because I agree. I don't think he's been. I mean, I probably would have called if you were going to call a Cardiff scrum half, I'd have called a Ballard Davis because I think actually he's been playing mostly quite well. Don't think he had the best game against the other day, but
so. Nick, Jamie's picked Harley's picked his forwards. You get to pick the back line. Who do you think goes on that first?
Well, on the positive, obviously Thomas Williams is back, isn't he? and he's streets ahead with a great respect to the 2 9s. And he, a lot of the good things we did do last Six Nations, I know there weren't many, but they often started with Thomas Williams doing something. I think that'll be an improvement because he played in the first game, but he got injured, didn't he, in the autumn? I'm not convinced he won't try Ben Thomas at 10 to start off with. You see, I think he might well go back to Ben Thomas.
You'll have to.
I think that's what's going to happen. But I'm saying Dan Edwards is going to have to play an awful lot of minutes because I don't think he's going to stick with Ben Thomas for the full 80s.
No. But
I can just see him getting cropped in the first 5 minutes because that's just Wales's luck at the moment.
Yeah. So I think probably he'll start Ben Thomas because he has played a little bit of 10.
Yeah, he will.
And then centres, I think he might well. I know it's not going to be popular, but I think he might go for experience. And I take on board what Harley's saying. But I think he might well go down the Tompkins Watkin route at 12 and 13. Williams will be 15, Adams 14. He likes Murray, so I'll put Murray at 11. Personally, I go Tom Rogers.
I think this is.
If you go Tom Rogers, I'd swap the wingers.
Yeah,
but
you know what I mean.
I think that's half the issue, isn't it? It's like, who knows what. Do we think Gatland genuinely has a game plan? So this is my question to you, James. What kind of game plan are we going to go for? We're not going to dominate up front. We're not going to run through the centres. What kind of game plan with that squad? What kind of game plan are you expecting?
I'm expecting the same game plan that Gatland always plays. You'll go back to Warrnambool. We've tried a creative style of play. It doesn't suit us. Wales have actually looked better when they've gone back to basics, and I think that's what we need to do. Gatland doesn't have a plan B. He only knows one way, and that's part of the problem. The rugby has moved on. Gatland hasn't, and that's one of the criticisms we've had with Warren Gatland, isn't it? I just think he'll go back to basics. I think he will try Warrnambool, and that's why we're not getting results, because we don't have those players to play that style anymore. We haven't got John Fox, we haven't got Jamie Roberts, we haven't got Cuthbert, we haven't got those big guys anymore to get us over the game line. But, I just don't see whether way Gatland is going to play unless he completely surprises us. But I don't see that happening, do you? I just think Gatland only knows one way, and that's Warrnambool.
I think some of the best rugby that we played was when we threw the book out the window, when we were kind of out of a game and we would start taking cheeky tap and goes and just really upping the pace, taking quick lineouts, things like that, and putting the opposition off, not playing into the defensive systems, if you like. That's when we started to break sides down. The game broke up quickly and we could play our sort of game. That Tompkins and Joe Roberts kind of game where you just don't know what's happening next. I think that's our only real hope of kind of throwing anything out there. We're almost the Fiji, the Northern Hemisphere Fiji now, where we're great in an open game and where it breaks up and we can play all the fancy stuff, but we just can't compete with power and strength of Ireland, France, and England up front, and Scotland have developed a decent squad.
And he hasn't found a style of play to suit this particular group of players yet, and that is the problem, isn't it?
Well,
that is the problem.
Which particular group of players? Because he keeps he completely throws out half of his squad. We've had 4 campaigns since the World Cup, and he's thrown out half the squad. But some of it is injury, right? Like the likes of Faletau dropping in out and Thomas Williams dropping in out of injuries. Fair enough. But look at the way the centres have been set up, and he's gone for a different setup for the centres in 4 different campaigns. He went for basically trying to carry on George North, Tompkins George North during the Six Nations, and then basically had to walk around with injuries and George North retiring. Then he went, right, well, no, we're going to have our big lad back at 12. We're going to go with Grady, who's not 12. He doesn't work very well in tight spaces. He's best cutting angles and coming out wide. He's a strike runner. Then for the autumn series, we went, right, we're going to have a playmaking 12. And we have a big lad at 13, and that worked really well when we also had big lad on the right wing. And we sort of suffered with no Josh Adams, Mason Grady injury because we don't really have another big lad winger. yet. Now we've gone back, and now we've got, other than Eddie James, all the like Eddie James is probably big lad. He's 193 centimeters, 110 kilos. Then the other three are all about 183 centimeters, 90-ish kilos, with Watkin being a little bit taller, a little bit heavier. Like that's a lot more lightweight than when you've got Mason Grady and Maxwell in your squad, who could fill in the second row.
And have done. And actually played very well when they were in the second row of back row.
I think it was 6. When it was them two and George North all alternating between 6 at one point. It was a very weird game. But yeah, it's just really odd. And then you look at the back line again. That doesn't really, like, I can't tell you who you're out at. Like Liam Williams is going to be a fullback. Josh Adams is wing. And then the others are like, well, are they wing? Are they covering fullback? Who's the order on the fullbacks? For me, I still think Tom Rogers' the best position is 15.
Agreed.
He just doesn't have a chance to play there.
Agreed.
Ellis Mee hasn't played any fullback, but he's going and saying, oh no, we're going to get into there. He did the same thing with Blair Murray. And I was just like, Josh Hathaway apparently is a fullback option. And it's like, so what you're doing is you're picking lots of wingers who apparently can also cover fullback. But don't play there.
But if you,
so are you going for an aerial kicking game? But have any of them been playing a kick chase heavy game plan? Well, no, not really. Do you have the kickers to do that? Well, really?
I think if you go back, though, I'm talking quite a few years, it was quite normal for players to just come through in a position where there was a gap. Yeah. Priestland came through and played his first season at 15. Yeah. Shane Williams started at scrum half and then moved on to the wing, then went to fullback, then went back to the wing. Yeah. There's been a couple of players who have come in and just kind of, let's get them on the pitch and let's put them there. Hathaway has played 90% of his rugby at fullback, but there isn't a gap for him at fullback at Gloucester. So he's on the wing because he's quite quick. So with that kind of thing, I kind of see that. The flip side of that is Ellis Mee, like you say, has never played fullback. He might have played under 11s. He might have been under 11s when there was 10 on the pitch. You don't know. But that's the difference between putting Tom Rogers and Josh Hathaway have both played fullback. They're both competent fullbacks. So I get putting them wing fullback. They're two positions that they play regularly. Blair Murray and Ellis Mee are out and out wingers, and trying to wedge them in and go, right, I'm going to make you into a fullback because I want all of my back three essentially to be fullbacks who can play in different positions. I don't think that works personally, and I don't think it will work for us in this particular Six Nations.
First and foremost, you want your winger to run in chances, don't you? First and foremost, you want your winger to be fast enough or skillful enough to take a fifth, a chance and finish it. Other things are just a bonus, and obviously be able to defend, tackle. But like if Louis Ray Samet was still available to us, that's what I want from a winger. Somebody's got real pace.
I will say there hasn't been a single article about Louis Ray Samet in 3 days.
Give it time. This is Wales Online. We're going to see one
you
very,
jinxed
very
it, you
soon.
fool. But one thing I've
They
just
do
looked,
one every
Ellis Mee's
week.
the same height as Eddie James. So watch him
6'4",
Gavin trying to make him into a big lad and a 12.
Yeah, insane. Right. Okay. We've done that one, gents, and we've got another couple of weeks to continue doing that one. So I'm just going to go quickly round the table, and I want you to give me one number where Wales are going to finish in the table. Any number between 1 and 6. Anyone that tries to take the piss with a 7 or 8 or a 9, no, we're not doing that one. So where are we going to finish? Nick, give me a number.
5th.
5th. Okay, Harley.
I think 6th.
Jamie.
I'm going to go 5th because that Wales or that Italy-Wales game, that's going to decide our fate. I think if we beat Italy, we'll finish 5th, but I cannot see a win against anyone else. But that Italy-Wales game is key, so I'm going to go 5th.
Okay. I'm going to go super positive, mega positive. I think it's all going to go right for us. We're going to end up in 4th.
Who else are we beaten then? Who are we beaten for you to say that?
Scotland.
Scotland.
Yeah,
It's at
I
Murrayfield's mind. We got
Yeah.
the Blues away.
Yeah, I know, but we're going to catch somebody on the wrong day, and we're going to hit. We're going to hit the sweet patch at some point for 20 minutes in a game, and everyone's going to go see. That's why we named Gates after him. So yeah, there we go, gents. Right. Thank you very much for your time once again this evening, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure. As always, all of our feeder pods are available on all good networks, so please do go into depth. All of our feeder pods go into a lot more depth than we do on the regional games, but we do enjoy doing what we're doing. So we shall be back again once again next week, and we shall see you all then. And until then, enjoy your rugby. Good night.
Good night.
Ta-ra.